For decades, millions of people believed wrestling was 100% real. The heroes, the villains, the crazy fights, they thought all of it was a legitimate sport. But in 1989, the biggest wrestling company in the world stood up in front of the government and said something that would change everything. This is the insane story of how wrestling admitted it was fake, and why tons of fans quit watching forever. To understand how huge this was, you need to know about one single secret rule: Kayfabe. It sounds like a crazy word, but Kayfabe was everything. It meant that what you saw on TV was real, 24/7. This wasn't just acting, this was their entire life. It was like the mob's code of silence, and breaking it was the ultimate crime. Back in the day, if two wrestlers were enemies on TV, they couldn't even be seen together in public. They had to use different hotels, different restaurants, and drive in different cars. One of the greatest wrestlers ever, Bret Hart, said that everyone believed if fans knew it was a work, the entire business would be destroyed. And if you broke this rule, you were done. Check this out. In 1987, the Ultimate American Hero, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, and the Ultimate Villain, the Iron Sheik, were caught driving together. Cops found them with marijuana and cocaine, and their on-screen rivalry was exposed as a total lie. The WWF fired them both, instantly. The message was simple: breaking this rule was the worst thing you could do. Because of this, fans were all in. They actually hated the villains so much they would attack them in real life. It wasn't crazy for wrestlers to get stabbed with hat pins or have fans try to key their cars in the parking lot. They saw these guys as actual threats to their favorite heroes. But pretending to be a real sport cost them a ton of money. State athletic commissions, the same people who regulate boxing, forced them to pay massive taxes, get expensive licenses for every wrestler, and have ambulances at every single show. The owner of the WWF, Vince McMahon, saw this as a total ripoff. He was losing millions, so he came up with a crazy plan to destroy the one secret his entire business was built on. The walls were about to come crashing down. But before Vince blew the whole thing up himself, one wrestler tried to defend the secret with his bare hands on national TV. In 1984, a reporter for 2020 named John Stossel was doing a story asking the one question you never asked: is wrestling fake? He got backstage access and started talking to one of the scariest wrestlers in the WWF, David Dr. D. Schultz. Schultz was a legit tough guy who hated people questioning his job. The video is super tense. Stossel looks terrified as this monster of a man glares at him. Finally, Stossel asks the forbidden question. I think it's fake. Huge mistake. Schultz instantly slaps Stossel hard across the ear. As Stossel stumbles, Schultz yells, "You think it's fake?" and slaps him again, knocking him to the ground. The message was loud and clear. This is what happens when you disrespect our business. Schultz even claimed Vince McMahon himself told him to do it. This turned into a PR nightmare. Stossel sued, and the WWF had to pay him a reported $425,000. Schultz got suspended and was later fired. This was a massive turning point. The old way of defending the secret with fists just collided with the modern world of corporate lawsuits. Vince McMahon learned a huge lesson that day. Physical intimidation was just way too expensive. A violent slap didn't save the secret, it just made the story bigger. He needed a smarter way to get what he wanted. So violence was out. It was time for a genius money-saving move. On February 10th, 1989, Vince McMahon went to the New Jersey State Senate to get wrestling deregulated forever. To do this, he had to prove wrestling wasn't a real sport. He had to admit it was all an act. In front of the government, a spokesperson for his company delivered the craziest statement imaginable. They said that professional wrestling should be legally defined as an activity in which participants struggle hand in hand primarily for the purpose of providing entertainment to spectators rather than conducting a bona fide athletic contest. Let that sink in. Not a bona fide athletic contest. For decades, the entire business was built on pretending it was a real fight. Now, the biggest wrestling promoter on earth just admitted the entire thing was a show. The New York Times even ran a headline saying, "Now it can be told, those pro wrestlers are just having fun." And it worked. The Senate voted 37-1 to deregulate wrestling, saving the company millions of dollars. To cover for this, Vince started calling it sports entertainment. He wasn't selling a sport anymore, he was selling a live-action movie. The old-school wrestlers and promoters were furious. They thought he killed the business. The sacred secret of wrestling was officially sold for a tax break. For the company, this was a massive win. They were saving so much money. But for a huge number of fans, it was a total betrayal. Imagine believing in Hulk Hogan and hating Rowdy Roddy Piper, only for the company to announce, "Just kidding, it's all for entertainment." It completely ruined the magic. So the fans split into two groups. You had the new fans who were in on the secret and just wanted to watch a cool show, but the old school fans who believed it was a real sport felt lied to. They had invested real emotions, and now it all felt like a joke. The show they loved was now openly fake, and for many of them, the reason to watch was gone. So they just left. They stopped watching completely. And then things got even worse. In 1994, Vince McMahon was put on trial, accused of illegally giving steroids to all his wrestlers. He was found not guilty, but the trial exposed all the crazy backstage secrets and drug use. It just proved to fans that this entire world was built on secrets and lies. The fans who left weren't mad that they just found out wrestling wasn't real. Most of them already figured that out. They were mad because the people running the show admitted it was a scam, and they did it just to save money. The line between what was real and what was fake had been destroyed by the man in charge. If the 1989 testimony was the first shot, the curtain call in 1996 was a nuke. The Monday Night Wars between WWF and their rival WCW were heating up. Two of the WWF's biggest stars, Kevin Nash, a bad guy, and Scott Hall, a good guy, were leaving to go to WCW for giant contracts. On May 19, 1996, after their last match, something insane happened. The good guys and bad guys, who were supposed to hate each other, all got in the ring and group hugged in front of thousands of people. On-screen enemies were celebrating their real-life friendship in the middle of the ring. Some fan caught the whole thing on a camcorder, and the footage went viral. Or the 90s version of viral. It was the wrestlers themselves showing everyone that their rivalries were completely fake. Vince McMahon was furious, but he could only punish one guy, Hunter Hearst Helmsley, by taking away a huge opportunity from him. But here's the craziest part. This ended up saving the WWF. The guy who replaced Helmsley in a big tournament was Stone Cold Steve Austin, and his win launched the most popular era in wrestling history. And when Hall and Nash went to WCW, they started the New World Order, an idea completely based on blurring the lines of reality, which fans were now totally ready for. So the story of wrestling's biggest secret is just insane. For decades, it was a super secret world protected by a code of silence. But on February 10th, 1989, that all got thrown away for money. To get out of paying taxes and dealing with rules, Vince McMahon traded the industry's biggest secret for millions of dollars and complete creative control. As a business move, it was genius. It turned sports entertainment into the global giant it is today. But it came at a huge cost. It cost them an entire generation of fans who felt completely betrayed. It turned a gritty, believable fight into a polished TV show. Today, fans complain about bad storylines, but back then, they were mad that the entire thing was a lie. So what happens when you reveal the magic trick? For wrestling, the 1989 admission meant tearing down the entire theater. The show got bigger, louder, and made way more money. But for millions of its biggest fans, it was never, ever real again. What do you think about this? If you remember this time in wrestling, let me know in the comments below. And if you learned something crazy today, do not forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.